Hey everyone, hope everyone's doing good out there. I just wanted to take a quick second to say thank you for 500 subscribers on the YouTube channel. That is insane. That means a lot, so thank you guys so much. And I wanted to kind of celebrate by doing a rig rundown on what I use. So guitars, amps, that kind of stuff. So stick around, let's dive in. So, the first guitar that I ever played on is this Squire Strat that I still have. There you go. Squire Strat, and it's so old now. I don't know if you can see with the light, but the pickguard is now like an aged white compared to the pickups. Looks kind of yellowish. But this actually wasn't my guitar. This was my dad's guitar, and he got it. He wanted to cross it off of his bucket list to eventually learn, a couple of tunes here and there. So he got the Squire starter pack with the guitar, the amp, and this little book that had like a little DVD thing with it. So he would always try to kind of mess around with that and play along with the DVD and stuff, but just couldn't get it figured out. So he set it aside for a while, and I was like, hey, I'll try it out. I'll see what's going on. And like most people, when they get their first guitar and they haven't learned or thought about doing it or anything, they're like, I have no idea how to do this, but let's figure it out. So took a couple of my first lessons with this guitar, and yeah, used it for a little bit just to get stuff learned before I got my next guitar, which is right here. And when I got my first guitar, I got this Epiphone SG. And for those who may not know about me, on the Squire Strat, when I was starting out learning how to play guitar, this was about 2010-ish, and Iron Man 2 had just come out. And AC/DC put out a soundtrack to that movie. It wasn't any new songs, but it was like all of their hits: Back in Black, Thunderstruck, Shoot to Thrill, all that kind of stuff. And then I was like, okay, I'm listening to that CD a lot. That might be some fun stuff to learn. And then around that same year, if not a year later-ish, they released their Live at River Plate DVD, which, for those that don't know, that was a recorded show that they played in 2009 on their Black Ice tour. But it was 3 sold-out nights in Argentina to a crowd of like 300,000. And to see like those guys doing a 2.5-hour set to like 300,000 people, the guys and gals in the front were all jamming out, and the guys and gals all the way in the back were jamming out. I was like, that was the moment I was like, I want to write something that moves that many people. That would be super, super fun. So Angus was always a role model to me, so was Malcolm. So for me, my first guitar had to be that guitar. So if you notice, it kind of emulates, I'll try to put in a picture if I can, but it kind of emulates the Live at River Plate SG persona. So I learned a lot of my first couple of songs, AC/DC songs that is, on this guitar. And from the Squire, it made a drastic difference in feel. Obviously, Epiphone to Squire, that difference. So yeah, my Epiphone SG that I every now and then pull out on occasion. I did also get a Gibson SG after that. I was gifted a Gibson SG by my parents, and it was a red SG that had the P90s in it, but I ended up selling that one because I wanted to eventually, now I've recently sold it, so I wanted to acquire the money to try and get the SG of my dreams that I'm working on getting. But after that Gibson SG, I was gifted my now #1 guitar that I use. So this right here is a 2016 Standard T Gibson Gibson Les Paul Standard. This is not the one that I got. I originally got a 2013 model. I was gifted that by my parents, and I was all kinds of confused because I was like, into Angus and the SG style and everything. And they were like, here, try this out. This is a pretty common model that a lot of players use. So I was willing to give it a try. I'd been in the AC/DC loop for about 4 or 5 years at that point. And I was kind of always shunning away any other artist that anybody showed me. I was like, nope, this is all I need. around that time, we went to go see like a tribute band festival, and it was like Def Leppard, Kiss, Ozzy Osbourne, and I think there was an AC/DC cover band there as well. But anyways, that was my kind of first glance at seeing the Les Paul in action with that style of music. So like Zakk Wylde was a huge influence on me growing up with that Les Paul style, among other things. And then also Ace Frehley from Kiss and Tommy Thayer. So when I started playing that stuff a lot more as well. So Kiss, and then Def Leppard, Steve Clark, oh my gosh, and Vivian Campbell as well, like the early Dio days, using a Les Paul and kind of switching back to that in the latter part of Def Leppard. So yeah, this has been my number one for quite some time. The original one, the 2013 model that I had, I was playing it one day, and I had the strap on both sides. The strap actually broke off on both sides. And so the guitar went from here to the floor. And it was a sound that I never really want to hear again in my life. And there was a hairline crack all the way on the back of the neck. Some frets were like sticking out of the wood and stuff. It was pretty gnarly. I could still play it, but just the overall feel was I eventually was like, this has got to change. So I ended up emailing and hitting up a lot of the guitar stores around the area to see if there was anything that they could do. And they all couldn't really do anything besides they were like, we got to take the neck off. We got to replace it. I'm like, no, it's got a very slim neck compared to most of the standard models that I've played before. And I was like, no, it's got to be this neck. So I ultimately ended up emailing Gibson, and they were like, sure, email it up here to Nashville. We'll take a look at it. We'll see. Or their thing might have been in Memphis at the time. I can't remember. But they were like, sure, send it up. So I packaged it out, and then I was literally like the meme of Kermit with the little coffee mug looking outside and it's raining. I was like that for the longest time because my number one guitar had gone. I didn't even want to play the Epiphone or the other Gibson SG I had. But eventually they sent this one back, and this one's different. It's the same neck, the same body and everything, and the same specs that I had, but it was the 2016 Les Paul Standard. So that's the one I've been rocking. Put strap locks on it. That was the first thing I did. So yeah, now it's gotten quite a lot of use in recent years with multiple bands. So there's belt rash on the back. Well-loved guitar. So yeah, my 2016 Gibson Les Paul Standard. Now, kind of around that same time in 2004, about 2014-ish, I wound up going over to a local music store and snagging my first Jackson guitar. So pretty much Def Leppard was my next really big influence that swept over me. So I remember seeing their Viva Las Vegas DVD that came out in 2013, and I was seeing this guy playing all these Jackson guitars, and they looked so cool. So I was like, I've got to try and snag me one of those. And I went into the local music store, and they had a used one, which is this Jackson Dinky swirl. It's got like a little red swirl sort of thing. And this was a guitar that I used quite a bit around that time, just because it made me feel like I was in Def Leppard or something. The Floyd's been kind of damaged, so I have to kind of get work on that done. But other than that, it is a really awesome guitar. So, keeping on that same vein of Def Leppard being the next thing that entered into my music knowledge while playing and learning the guitar, right after that DVD came out of the Viva Hysteria, I believe that was around 2013 or so, they announced a tour with Kiss in 2014. So we went up to Georgia to go check that out, and Phil Collen, the lead guitar for Def Leppard, was playing this awesome new Jackson. It was all black. The neck was black on it. The whole body was black, but it was like a matte black kind of finish. So it looked really cool. Very, 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 very classy. So I remember seeing that Jackson was going to release a limited run of those guitars. I forget how many off the top of my head. But anyways, I have one. So that was the next guitar I ended up snagging in 2014, or I should say my dad. So this is a Jackson PC1 Phil Collin model in all black. I use this on stage with my band right now, Disco Kiss, for all of our Def Leppard tunes. This is one of the awesomest guitars that I own. I love it's got the sustainer function on it, which for those that don't know, it gets like a really cool screaming feedback kind of sound, or with the flip of a switch, you can get a very nice subtle sustain out of notes as well. Absolutely killer guitar. So fast forward a couple years after getting that guitar, I pretty much stayed with all those guitars for quite some time, and then I ended up moving over to something different that I had not tried before a whole lot. So I wanted to try something a tad bit different, and shout out Legit Music up in Council Bluffs, Iowa, just a hopscotch away from Omaha, Nebraska. I wound up getting this, which is a Fender 57 reissue Stratocaster. Really is such a nice change from all the other guitars I have. All the other guitars are really humbucker oriented, very hard rock, heavy metal kind of driven guitars. And I was looking for something just a tad bit different. I was like getting into the Eagles a lot. I was getting into Stevie Ray Vaughan. I was also getting into Hendrix a lot around that time as well. So I was kind of looking for that Strat sound compared to the Gibson SG or the Les Paul that I've used before. So yeah, my Fender 57 reissue Strat. So, for also trying out something different, keeping in the same vein again with the Def Leppard stuff, I was really into their acoustic stuff as well. So like Two Steps Behind, a couple of acoustic versions of their songs, and I hadn't really thought about the acoustic a whole lot, having the electric guitar being kind of the forefront of what I was seeing. And then I listened to a couple of acoustic records from like the Alice in Chains Unplugged record. Oh my gosh, so good. So I wound up getting my first acoustic at a local music store. This is an LAG Tremontaine. There you go, T100D stage acoustic guitar. This is the only acoustic I have. Heavily out of tune. And it's kind of fading off, but I got a good friend of mine to get it signed by John Foreman from Switchfoot. So yeah, my LAG acoustic. When I went off to college, I ended up taking up classical guitar. So this is the only classical guitar I have. It's like a beginner classical guitar. So it's a Yamaha CG102. And this I still play on occasion, some classical stuff. I might eventually get a better classical guitar, but this one right now is just the first one that I ever got. So for those who also don't know, when I started playing in bands, I actually started playing with the youth group at the church I was going to at the time, the Community Life Center Church, and I still go to. That was like my first band experience, seeing how things worked in a band dynamics, the fact that when you're the only guitar player and you stop playing, there's nothing you can hide behind. So I ended up gravitating a lot towards worship style guitar players and things like that. And a lot of that included a couple of Gretsch guitars that I was looking into. And I always knew Gretsch was a really good company, hence starting with my idols being Angus and Malcolm Young. So Malcolm Young having that affiliation with Gretsch kind of kicked off like, oh, okay, these are pretty darn good guitars. So when I ended up getting my first Gretsch, I ended up snagging this one. Now, as far as the model, this is a G5622T Gretsch. Super awesome guitar. I was looking for something that had sort of the hollow body sort of sound, and I always play this guitar on occasion when the other guitar player either has a Les Paul or something to where I know it'll it'll sound pretty good in the mix altogether. Now, fast forward to about 2016. Now this is really weird because just a couple months before that, when it was still 2015, it was about to be 2016, Dad was asking me if I wanted to go see Guns N' Roses. And at the time, I knew that Axl was still touring with, it was pretty much Axl was the only original member. So I was like, I don't know, man. I can't see it if it's not, Slash, Duff, and Axl all together. And he was like, okay, I understand. And then, like, literally in the beginning of summer in 2016, they announced their reunion. And it was like, hey, they're going to be close. Do you want to go see them? And I was like, hell yeah. And that show was absolutely incredible. So Slash became immediately another huge influence on my guitar playing. Just his style and his technique and his chops are amazing. He could play for hours. He could probably play for days or weeks. I ended up going to see him again in 2019, and he had this beautiful red burst kind of Les Paul. And I believe they call it the Vermilion burst. So I saw that they were going to be making a standard issue series of that. Gibson was. I always double check legit music on their site and see what new guitars they got in, and lo and behold, they had it. I remember going in there and seeing that thing up on the wall. So I also snagged, this was the first guitar, mind you, that I actually got, I think, with my own money. So a Gibson Slash signature Vermilion burst. And I play this one a lot with Disco Kiss as well. So those who come out, I sometimes pull this one out for the GNR tunes that we have. Yeah. The 2019 Slash Vermilion Burst Standard. Now, fast forward to 2021, 2022. 21 sounds more right. But I saw that Gibson was going to release this limited run Flying V. I remember looking at it, and this is kind of where I'm going to also mention that growing up, Trans-Siberian Orchestra was a huge, huge influence on me as I think becoming the player that I am today. So Chris Caffrey, Al Petrelli, Angus Clark, Joel Hoekstra, and a lot of the other guys who have kind of filtered in and out throughout the years really have had an impact on my playing. I've probably been going to see Trans-Siberian Orchestra since I was 4 or 5. So they would always rehearse in the Mid-America Center up there in Council Bluffs. So they'd always kind of kick off their tour there, so I'd always get the chance to kind of see that until we ended up moving out. So, but I always catch them every now and then in recent years. So shout out to those guys. Hope you guys are doing good. So they always would have these super insane looking guitars. They would I would have to air guitar when I was going to see them play and stuff. So Angus uses a lot of Flying V's during the show, and so does Chris Caffrey as well. So I was always kind of drawn to that shape, but having the SG and the Les Paul, I always figured it would be a little bit different, but I finally got this one and it felt super comfortable. So this right here is my Flying V guitar. And I saw this thing, this is like a 2021 model Flying V, I believe. Just with the mirror pickguard and the black finish, I immediately got Trans-Siberian Orchestra vibes. So I was like, I've got to have this to do a couple of TSO covers. I have since used it on that. I use this one a lot on stage with my band Disco Kiss. And it might be hard for y'all to see on the back of it, but there's some like belt scratches, pyro dust on it. It's pretty rocking. So yeah, my Gibson Flying V. We've been going through a lot of classic rock, hard rock guitar players throughout my years of playing, but I've also a lot of I've been blessed to have a lot of people also show me the likes of Dimebag Darrell, the guys in Metallica, James Hetfield, Kirk Hammett, and a bunch of like other bands that I've just never heard in those categories of those other bands. And I listen to everything from like the heaviest, I should say the heaviest scream stuff where you can still understand what they're saying when they scream. But then I also listen, to like really experimental stuff and all the way back to like the 40s kind of stuff. So I have like a I guess as Gordon Ramsay would say, a huge palette. But anyways, before I went off to school, quick story time, kids. My dad's boss had just gone and seen a band called Avatar in a small club where we were at in Florida, and he burned the set onto a CD and gave it to me and my dad. So we ended up putting that CD into our car, and the first song was Legend of the King. So we heard that and we were like, whoa. My good friend, he was always playing these Avatar riffs, and I would always ask him, please tell me you wrote that. And he was like, no, dude, this is Avatar. So I was like, I gotta learn that. That was my first experience into sort of anything that sounded like that style of guitar playing, the harmonies, the energy, the groove. And I still haven't really heard anything like that. Me and him ended up seeing that they were coming to a club nearby. So we wound up going, and they had these really, this was around 2019. So they were on the Avatar Country tour. They were on the back half of the Avatar Country tour. And I remember seeing them with these amazing red Ibanez guitars. And they had these they looked absolutely beautiful in person. They had these cool like engravings on it with like little flowers and cool stuff like that. Picture attached somewhere. I was like, I've got to snag one of those because like that is an absolutely awesome guitar. So ended up trying to do some digging on it, but I guess the model was discontinued for some time. So couple years passed, and I was like, okay, I'll keep my ear out for it. And finally, one popped up online, so I ended up snagging the same model that they use. So this right here is an Ibanez. This is an Ibanez Prestige RG 3770FZ. What all that extra stuff means, I do not know, but I do know that this is the guitar I use for all the Avatar covers, and the only thing I've done to it is I've replaced the neck and the bridge humbuckers to match Tim's guitar. So the neck and the bridge humbuckers are both whatever the Mark Morton DiMarzios are. The other ones that were in there at the time were really, really good, but these kind of have a little bit more of that mid-range honk to it. Very, very cool for like heavy stuff. So this is my Ibanez Avatar guitar. Hey, shout out to Tim and Jonas from Avatar, by the way. Those are the like most recent guitar influences that I've had that have impacted me so much that it completely changed the way I was thinking about guitar playing. It completely changed what I thought was possible on the guitar. So shout out to y'all, man. Would love to hang when y'all come back to the States. This one is another Trans-Siberian Orchestra inspired purchase. And I've always kind of been looking for one that sort of matched the tuxedo fit for guitars. So like the black and white kind of style thing. But it wasn't exactly the same. So to match the black Gibson V with the mirror pickguard, I knew that another guitar that was used a lot in the TSO rotation, especially by Chris McCaffrey, was the Jackson Rhodes. And I always really liked that style too. Very like pointy offset V kind of sort of thing going on. So I ended up snagging this white Jackson Rhodes model. Absolutely amazing. It's got like a little mirror panel thing here with the Floyd Rose, and I use this for a couple of TSO covers and Sabotage covers and other covers as well. Absolutely amazing guitar. And I almost forgot, but I also have this 6-string Yamaha Guitar-Lele, the GL1, and I actually got this before going to Sea Base with the Boy Scouts of America. I am actually an Eagle Scout, for those that don't know. And I was looking for a guitar that I could take with me that was small enough to take onto the boat. Basically what it is we go onto a sailboat for a week. So I knew I still needed something that somewhat resembled a guitar, and you can make all the same chord shapes and stuff and play Metallica and Pantera on, so thought I would snag one of these. So yeah, the Yamaha GL1 Guitar-Lele. Now, as far as amps and stuff go, I still have the first amp that came with the Squier Strat. Granted, I don't use it anymore, but I still have it. Now, one of the first actual amps that I got besides that one was a little Vox, like AC10, AC15, and it had like a couple of different channel switches on it and effects, and I actually wound up playing that with a band that I ended up sort of joining in middle school with a bunch of other friends. I remember we were battling so much for volume that I remember I had that thing on full blast, on full volume. And one day we were practicing and it was just, and I was like, oh my gosh, what's happening? I remember we figured out it was the fuse. We blew the fuse on the amp. So I ended up snagging my Fender Champion 100 watt amp. And it's not here right now, so I will put a picture of it whoosh, over here. And that was my main amp that I hauled around for a really, really long time for lots of shows. Eventually, I wound up getting a Black Star Series 1 100 head. Remember snagging that sometime around 2015 because we went to go see Tesla and they were playing these Black Star amps and they sounded crushing. I knew I had to snag an actual tube amp. So wound up snagging that and a Marshall 4x12 cab, both of which are also going to be over here. I used those for a really long time, not for any shows that I can remember. I mainly used the Fender Champion 100 for the shows that I was playing. Fast forward to now, I got really tired of hauling around that Fender Champion 100. The goal was to try and find something that encapsulated the sound of a tube amp. I remember for the longest time going on the internet trying to find what a lot of the pros were using, because I knew that a lot of the bands I had spoken of were using like profilers or modeling amps. And for those that don't know, that's the kind of stuff that the companies Kemper and Fractal Audio make a lot. So the two big ones are the Fractal Axe Effects and the Kempers. So for me, I ended up snagging the Kemper amp. So this one is the powered head from Kemper. And I really, really love this one because I can put it on top of my Marshall 4x12 cab, pretty much plug into the cab and use that rather than the modeling cab that's in here. But the cool function of it is if I don't want to use the cab, I can just plug this direct into our mixer and that goes straight to the front of house, so they can kind of mix it however they want. You can run it in stereo, you can do all kinds of stuff with this thing. So I use this for all of the sounds that you guys hear on all the covers. The only other thing I use besides this on the covers on some of my videos is the Neural DSP Gojira plugin for just a couple of things every now and then. Primarily it's this. And I always was watching rig rundowns on stuff and trying to figure out, you know, what bands were using and things like that. And when you see some of those rigs and you go like, oh, that's a really nice amp, I wish I had that Marshall amp. Oh, that's a really nice Mesa Boogie head, I wish I had one of those. Oh, that's a really cool Soldano amp, I really wish I had. Oh, that's a really cool orange amp. I really wish I had that. And I just eventually figured out, like, well, I mean, I got to get something that's going to get me close, because I'll probably never be able to afford those things. So that's where this came into the picture. I still use tube amps, you know, from time to time, and I guess it kind of depends on the gig. For now, this works just fine. So the Kemper powered head. Also, I do use this with my band Disco Kiss. I use it with Jumping the Gun, and I also use it with Dead Sled Funeral Company whenever I play with those bands. So if you guys see the, you know, freaking box stolen from NASA, that's what it is. It's the Kemper powered head. It's got all the sounds and all the stuff in there. I've got a couple of studio packs from Colin Richardson, and he did Bullet for My Valentine, Slipknot, stuff like that. And then I've also got some awesome packs in here from Howard Benson, a couple of others as well. Howard Benson, I love his stuff that he did with In Flames. That pack's pretty cool. The stuff that he did with Theory of a Dead Man and the stuff that he did with 3 Days Grace as well is all in there as well. So I always dig that kind of stuff. Very cool. I also ended up snagging the Marshall 4x12 1960 cab, slant cab, and that has been essential for a lot of the shows that I do. I primarily use it now for just stage volume. Nobody really gets to hear that but me, or those who are close to the stage. I always use that to get like some feedback on stage with the guitars and stuff. So and I snagged that around the same time I got the Series 1 head in 2015. Yeah. Well, guys, thank you. That about wraps up all the gear that I have so far, and I'm always on the lookout for new stuff. Kind of looking at either making a GoFundMe for some of that or something. I don't know. Always on the lookout for new stuff. Also, if you guys have any recommendations on stuff that you think I should check out or put in any of the videos that I cover, drop that down below. All right, guys, thanks again for getting the channel to 500. That is over 500. That seriously blows my mind, and it means a lot to me. So thank you guys so much for enjoying and digging the channel and what I do. So I really appreciate that. Thank you, and hope to see you guys in another cover video soon. Thank you guys so much again. Peace.